Fred, do you remember what we discussed last when we were in class? Hannah, do you remember what we discussed last in class? Jacqueline, Abi, anybody who can remind us what we discussed last in class? Sorry, Fred. I hope you are getting better. Sorry if you are hospitalized. Fred was not there. Hannah, Jacqueline, Abi, anybody who remembers what we discussed last?
I think we were finishing on topic 7 on measuring human resource contribution.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the measure that we discussed, you remember? How we measure human resource?
Not really.
So, no problem. You recap, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a minute, I show my screen. So I believe you are able to see whatever I'm sharing. Today we want to discuss about developing a result-based approach. Developing a result-based approach. And as a human resource manager, you'll be in charge of human resources, and you must come up with some approach, because at times we have some for employees, we can't actually account for what they have done. We can't tell how much contribution they've given. As much as we have discussed about the cost of human resources, we've also discussed about how to measure the contribution of human resources to organization. But there comes a time where you are not able to tell what a particular individual is doing in that particular organization. So we'll have to discuss about how to develop a result-based approach so that you are able to manage the operation of the business, or you are able to assess the performance of the members of your organization. So when you talk of a result-based approach, it has an aim of organization. Okay, an approach is the aim of organization is to achieve some results based on a well-founded philosophy of the organization. For example, the philosophy of KIM is to empower people with information. So with that empowerment of information, that's why we do conduct trainings. We conduct several trainings to several stakeholders or different people at different level. For instance, for this class, I'm trying to equip you with information so that you can qualify with a diploma in human resource management. But that's not all. You might require other courses for you to be an all-rounded person. So you can still come for additional courses. So in that case, a scheme, since our objective is to ensure that we share the knowledge that we do have. In that case, we come up with a strategy. We come up with the mechanism. How are you measuring? How are we going to measure if we are achieving this objective of imparting knowledge? So that's what we are referring to as a result-based approach. Now, there are guidelines that we do follow when we are coming up with the result-based approach. And these guidelines are: one, establishing development intervention framework. That as much as we're looking at how to evaluate the development of our employees, we must come up with how we are going to intervene within those particular framework. I'll give you two perspectives. When we are evaluating performance of human resources, for example, if we are conducting if we are conducting staff appraisals, we'll have some employees who will perform very high, whose performance will be very high rated. Then you'll also have some employees whose performance will be very low. Now, those employees who perform very well might start requesting for better remuneration or better terms of payment or terms of employment compared to those who are not performing very well. On the other hand, those who are not performing very well will be pleading that we give them a chance for them to improve. So, as a as a human resource manager, you must come up with the mechanism. You must have a mechanism. How are you going to manage that? Because if you don't certify those who are high performing, there are high chances that they might leave our organization. So if they leave, they give us a gap. And also, if you don't maintain those low performing, in that case, you might end up sacking almost every year, and there are costs that are associated with the separation, because you cannot just sack somebody and you don't pay for him or her, because depending on the contract that you have signed, it might cost you more than you anticipated. So you must come up with a framework how you are going to intervene any other thing that comes in. Those who are performing better, how are you going to manage them? And those who are not performing very well, how are you going also to deal with them? Then number two, you must establish relationship framework with the stakeholders. Now, when you talk of stakeholders, these are the people who have interest in this particular organization. So you must come up with a framework how we are going to manage that particular relationship. For example, if we are using KIM as an organization, we have students, then we have lecturers. Now, we have some scenarios where students have not performed very well and they would like to blame lecturers. We also have some instances where lecturers have not performed very well, but they would like to blame on students. We have a scenario where a lecturer has not been attending classes, but when students perform poorly, then for the lecturer, he wants to defend himself and make it as if it's students who have not revised. But we also have scenarios where lecturers have been consistently coming to class, but some students have consistently been absent, so they will not perform very well. So in that case, we get torn between. We are not able to make decision what happens. So in that case, we must come up with a relationship framework with those stakeholders. At what level are we going to say that a lecturer has performed well, even if the students have not performed well? At what level are we going to say that a lecturer has done his duty? Then, at what level are we also going to say that students have done their duty, but lecturers have let them down? So we must have that particular framework to be able to manage our performance-based plan. Then, after that, we also have to design risk management plan. Now, when you talk of risk, these are the exposure or possible happening that are not desirable. So we must come up with a mechanism how we are going to deal with those particular happenings. Now, I've given an example that if we don't certify those who are high performing, they're likely to look for alternative employment. And previously we discussed about employee turnover and reasons why employee will leave the organization. So if we don't take care of them, they are likely to leave. And if they leave, they are likely to let those who are not performing very well in our organization. So we'll end up having baggage within our organization that we let down, let off other good employees. So we must have assess those risks, and we must come up with a strategy. How are we going to deal with that particular risk so that we don't get into that much problem? Probably if we have those who are performing very well and we have those who are moderate, we can recommend training for those who are moderate so that they also improve to get to the high performance. So that those who are initially performing very high, even if they leave, we have a fallback position. We will only promote those who are already within the organization. So those are how we come up with the risk. We design a risk management plan. Then we also establish a review plan. We establish a review plan. Now, when you talk of a review plan, we must come up with the mechanism how we are going to perform or to measure and audit and evaluate performance of our employees. For example, in some organization, you'll find that once you are a high performer, you will be expected to fill in a personal appraisal. You appraise yourself and submit to the management, let's say on monthly basis or a quarterly basis. But if you are a moderate performer, you'll be required to do a self-appraisal on a relatively shorter period. Probably on a monthly basis, you must be appraised by your supervisor. But now, if you are under a low performer, you are subjected to performance management. And so because you are put under performance management, that means you have to do those appraisal on a very short period, probably on a weekly basis. Every week you must submit a report what you have done, and you must also submit a report of what you are going to do for the next week. You must give a plan of what you have done and what you are going to do the subsequent week. So in that case, once you have established such things, then you are able to assist those who are not performing very well. We are able to make follow up so that they are able to perform. Then we also need to develop performance measurement and reporting framework. And now, when you talk of performance measurement and reporting framework, we must come up with a mechanism how we are going to get back to the stakeholders. Remember, we said we must have a relationship with the stakeholders. Now, in events, there's a positive feedback. How do we report that positive feedback to the concerned stakeholder? And in event there's a negative feedback, how again do we communicate that negative feedback to the stakeholder? And I'll give you an example. In most organizations, management will be very fast, will be very active to give a negative feedback. And I'll illustrate this way. If today you launch a complaint, let's say you can try, if you launch a complaint against me that I've not been attending classes, or I've been attending class for a very short period, or I've been attending class very late and leaving very early. If you make such a complaint to management, you'll find that management will be very active, will take an active role to deal with that. Everybody will be asking for explanation. Why shouldn't I be disciplined if at all there's a complaint from students? But the same thing, if at all some of you give a compliment, it might take a relatively longer period before I get that particular compliment. For instance, if you wrote a letter and you addressed to, because you are online students, you addressed to your branch manager, and you say this lecturer has been attending to us, has been explaining, he has done these good things. Probably by the time I get that particular information, it will have taken a month or 2 months. But if you go to a branch manager and you just give a verbal complaint that this lecturer has not been attending to us, he has been frequenting absenteeism. So in that case, that branch, as much as it's a verbal feedback, it will be taken with the high magnitude. So you'll find that the same day you have complained, I'll get that particular complaint on my desk. Or the same day you have complained, I'll probably be sent an email to requesting me to explain why I should not be disciplined. So in that particular case, that's why I say that we must come up with a mechanism how we are going to communicate, how we are going to give this particular information. Yes, how we are going to give this particular report, that if there's a positive feedback, can we ensure that it gets the concerned stakeholder as soon as possible? If it's a negative feedback, let's also ensure that it still gets the concerned stakeholder so that we are not biased. We are not seen to be biased that will give skewed information. Then another one, ensure stakeholders' involvement in a performance appraisal, that we must involve the stakeholders. Now, for example, if at all we evaluate performance of lecturers and somebody sits down in an office and evaluates and say, this is what I'm going to consider. These employees who have not been reporting to class, they have a number of complaints, or there are these challenges that they have been facing, or they have this, they are not able to complete syllabus or whatever. But now that particular appraisal is not involving me as a lecturer, then I will not be able to know where I've done wrong and or where I need to improve. So it will not be helpful. So we need to come up with a mechanism where we are going to involve the stakeholders. So when we involve the stakeholders, in that case, we'll be able to achieve our objective. Now, we want to look at measurement and evaluation. So when you talk of measurement, measurement is a process of collecting data or information in numerical form. So for example, if we want to know how we have performed in this class, I can ask you, how many classes have you attended? Anybody who can honestly say, how many classes have you missed? Like Fred said, he missed the previous class. Apart from previous class, how many classes have you missed, Fred? Hannah, how many classes have you missed? Jacqueline, how many classes how many classes have you missed?
One,
Eh? None.
one.
One. Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Abby, how many classes have you missed?
None.
None.
I have missed none.
None. Okay, thank you for being
For this unit.
attentive. For this unit.
No, I've never missed any.
Okay, thank you. Uh-huh. Fred, I missed more than 4. Okay. Beyonce, how many classes have you ever missed for this unit? Beyonce missed 1. So in that case, because we are measuring, we can count. So in that case, we'll be doing measurement. So the same thing with the employee, we could be interested, how many customers have you served? So we can measure, we can count. How many sales have you brought in? How many units have you produced? So in that case, that's what we are referring as a measurement, because we are able to count. And now when you talk of evaluation, evaluation is a systematic process through which an assessment is made to the set objective, goals, standards in a follow-up to design implementation, improvement, outcomes, and programs. Now, I'll give for instance, I might have not missed a class. I might have been attending to class every time. But now, as much as I come to class as a lecturer, I don't give, okay, the information I give is contradictory, or the information I give is not satisfactory. Get it? So, for instance, I'll come to class, I explain 2 points, then the rest I send you to groups. I tell you now do group discussions. I've completed that particular class. So, in that perspective, if you are looking at measurement, we'll say yes, this lecturer has attended all classes because he has not missed a class. But now, when it comes to evaluation, then the quality of the work or whatever the lecturer has done may not meet the required standard. So that's where the evaluation comes in. So for you, we might be looking at how many customers have you served. But in that case, that is measurement. But now we could also be interested to see how what was the satisfaction rate have you given to those customers, of those customers you have served, how many are likely to come back? And if they come back, how many are likely to come back and specifically look for you? So in that case, we'll be conducting evaluation. So, purpose of measurement. Let's look at the purpose for measurement. That measurement enables the placement of activity, task, objects, and items in their respective place in a program. For example, when are you starting your exam? Anybody who knows when they are starting the exam?
From date 30th.
Date 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you confirmed you have all your cards, scores, and work-based intact?
There are others which have not been graded.
Eh,
Yeah.
okay. But now for those that have been graded, you have confirmed their scores. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, we have done measurement. Because you know you are on the target you are supposed to do the exam, you know by that date you are supposed to have cleared fees. You are supposed to have a collected exam card. You are supposed to have prepared for the exam. You know the unit you are supposed to do on that particular first date. So in that case, you'll put your programs to align so that you are able to achieve that particular objective. So that's the purpose of measurement, because you know I'm supposed to do this by this date and do this by this date. Number two, measurement enables evaluation of achievement as it forms a basis for judging the implementation of objectives. In that case, once you have set up measurement, you know what you want to achieve. For example, you might have set a target of a score you want to get in your final exam. So for this unit, who can share with us the score you are targeting to get at the end of the exam? Any member who would like to share with us a score that you are targeting to get for this particular unit? Anyone willing to share? Hannah, which grade are you targeting to get in this unit?
Distinction.
Okay, distinction. So because you are targeted to get a distinction, then you'll put in place or you'll be able to evaluate yourself at the end of the exam. Once you have done the exam, if you get a distinction, then you say you have met your objective. If you don't get your distinction, then you are able also to tell what could have happened. Probably you might be preparing for the exam, and something, let's say some few minutes before you go for exam, you get some shocking information. So those shocking information, they affect you psychologically. In that case, you are not able to perform. So in that case, you will not be able to get your distinction. But now when you conduct the evaluation, because you had already measurement in place, in that case, you are able to tell why you did not perform as expected and why you have, yes, why you didn't get as expected. The measurement also facilitates research and development. That if today you are like Hannah is targeted to get a distinction in this unit, if you don't get a distinction, you will start doing soul searching to find out what has made it not possible for you to get the distinction. Probably along the way, you you could have targeted to get a distinction, but during this month, we have a number of weddings. Every weekend, we'll have weddings till your exam. So, weekdays, you are busy at work. Weekends, you are busy preparing for weddings, to attend weddings of your friends and relatives. So, in that case, that will eat much of your time. And by the time you settle to do exam now, you have not prepared adequately, so you will not get your distinction. So in that case, if you are able to conduct research and find out what were the time wasters, so that's the advantage of measurement. The fourth one, it enhances accountability. as stakeholders are tasked to account for deliverable in a project program. So, as a human resource manager in your organization, you'll give targets. Those targets, that's what we are referring to, deliverables. Now, once you have given the targets, then we will also expect you to evaluate at the end of the period to see how you have performed. So, when you evaluate, you will be asking those particular employees to account for what they were to deliver. So, if they are able to explain why they have not achieved what they were to achieve, in that case, you will be conducting measurement. Another one, measurement enables prediction of future performance. That if at all, okay, for instance, last semester you did financial accounting. If at all you got a B or a distinction in financial accounting, you can as well predict that this year, this semester, you're also likely to get a distinction in human resource accounting, considering that human resource accounting is more easier than management account or than financial accounting that you did, because you have not done a lot of calculations. These are just the things that are affecting human resource that we have discussed. Another one, it helps in identification of gaps and problems in the program. That with the if you are doing measurement, you are able to identify the gaps or the problems that are likely to be there. For instance, in an organization, once you'll give targets. When you give those targets, then you'll, at the end of the period, you are able to evaluate what were the challenges. Why did the most members of the staff meet those particular objectives? So in that case, you are able to come up with a solution to those. So let's look at the need or importance of now evaluation. And evaluation determines future investment needs. Sorry. Hello? Hopefully you can hear me. I got distracted. Somebody made a phone call and I got distracted. So I was saying that evaluation determines future investment needs in human resources. What do you need to do with human resources in the near future? So in that case, that's what you are referring, sir. Okay, that's what you are referring. Okay, what you need to do. For example, if we are planning to improve, yes, sorry. So we have said that it gives us where we need to invest in human resource, and also give an example. If at all in our organization we have a plan to open several branches, and these branches that we plan to open, we also have a plan to have some management and all levels. So we can start earlier by preparing our staff members to take up those roles, to take up those challenges. We can start having some trainings so that they are able to take up those particular roles. So in that case, we will be determining what investment we require. Probably we can allow them to enroll for formal education, like now what you have done, or we can also organize for specialized training. Yeah. Number two, improve human resource effectiveness to the organization. That when you conduct evaluation, then we are likely to improve the effectiveness of our human resources, because we are evaluating, we are identifying the gaps that they do have. Then they are likely, if they correct on those gaps, then they are likely to perform better. Then number three, identify and diagnose weaknesses in a human resource process, programs, or projects. In that case, I'll ask you, while recruiting, there are several methods we use to recruit. One of them, we refer to it as competitive recruitment. Competitive recruitment, this is where we advertise for vacancy and let prospective candidates apply for those positions. Then we invite them for interview. After interview, we identify the best candidate and give that particular job. Then we also have an alternative which we call headhunting. Headhunting, with headhunting, it means we identify we can look in the industry and identify the best performing candidates. Then we get that particular person, or we poach that particular person from the other organization. According to you, which is the best method for us to recruit? Should we use headhunting or should we use competitive recruitment? Anybody who can share? Martha Wanjiku, between competitive recruitment and head hunting, which one do you think will give us the best employee in organization? Uh-huh. So Fred support competitive recruitment. Someone else? Jacqueline, Abby, Hannah, Martha, Beyonce. Which one do you support?
I prefer competitive.
Competitive recruitment. Okay, thank you. Someone else with a different counter opinion? Now, let me paraphrase this. Who is the best CEO in the country today, according to you, or according to how you have heard in news or media? Who is the best CEO in the country today? Or who is the most performing CEO in the country? Anybody who can share with us? Any CEO you have heard of? Hello, class. Hannah has given us Simon Kabu. Now, if Simon Kabu, Fred is giving KCB Bank CEO, okay? Now, if we intend to get this particular CEO to organization, do you think if we use competitive recruitment, we are likely to attract that particular CEO to our organization? Will it be easier for us to get that particular CEO to our organization if we are going to use competitive recruitment? Hannah, do you think if, let's say, Equity Bank wanted to recruit a CEO, do you think it will be easier for Equity Bank to attract Simon Kabu if they advertise for the vacancy? Will he apply for that particular position? Okay. So because we're discussing about identifying of and diagnostic weakness in the human resource processes. Now, there are some processes that we have to undertake. I've given you just an example. If you are recruiting, there are some positions or there are some talents that we can tap in. And for us to tap in these talents, we cannot tap them in when you use the competitive market recruitment. We can only tap them when you are using head hunting. For example, most companies have are supporting sports by having teams, which they also use for marketing purpose or brand recognition or brand visibility. So in that case, if there's a good player, these companies will not subject that good player into competitive recruitment. They will use headhunting because he has a special future, he has a special talent that cannot be gotten elsewhere. So they will use headhunting. But now, if we are recruiting just normal employees, then it's far much better for us to use competitive recruitment. So in that case, we'll be looking at those two dynamics, and we are able to identify the problems with those two, and we'll apply the method that best suit our situation. Another one, identify and align needs of human resources, and business strategy. That we look at what does business want to achieve against how are we going to achieve that, or how are you going to use our human resources to achieve that particular objectives. So when you come up with when you have the valuation, then we are able to achieve that. Another one, it's enhance motivation of employee, that when employees are performing very well and we are giving feedback how they are performing very well, then we motivate them because we are giving compliments to our employees. They are likely to improve their performance and perform better. So let's look at some of the myths that make it difficult for us to implement evaluation, measurement, and evaluation. Now, when you talk of myth, these are unfounded truths, or these are just stories that have come to have people have come up with that explain why it's difficult for us to have this particular activity. So, the myth number one, that it's impossible to measure. So, it's not possible for us to measure our human resources. For example, uh, how I've taught you and how other lecturers are teaching you. Are you able to measure and say, this amount of money, this fees I've paid, this lecturer deserves to get 5,000 from it, the other lecturer deserves to get 3,000 from it? It's not easier to measure in that perspective. So it becomes difficult. So because it's difficult to measure, then we cannot have, or it's not easier to implement evaluation, measurement, and evaluation. Number two, there are too many variables to do good study or make a good conclusion of the cause and effect. That if you don't perform well, for example, if you don't perform well in your examination, we cannot say that a lecturer has not performed well, because a lecturer could have done his part. There could be other things that were hindering you. For example, Fred admitted he missed about 4 classes. Now, if at all Fred is not going to perform well, uh, and most of the questions that have come, we discuss in those classes that he didn't attend. So it will not be fair to say that the lecturer did not perform. It's better to say it's only Fred who has not performed well in that particular exam. So it becomes difficult to measure because there are other factors that come in. Some likewise, if you are dealing with human resources, in an organization, we have different departments. Those departments are interrelated. So you have a department like sales. They are concerned about making sales. How much sales can they achieve? How many units will they sell? But now, if production department has not produced, and it has not produced because procurement department did not make materials available. So in that case, we are going to incriminate sales department for not having achieved their sales target, yet it's not their fault. It was because of procurement department which did not make available raw materials. In that case, production department could not produce, so marketing department also lacked items to sell. Another myth that evaluation is important only to justify existence. That most of us, when you conduct a employee appraisal, we only conduct those appraisal so that you seem to be around, but you don't conduct the appraisal objectively. So in that case, it makes it difficult or it make it impossible for us to have appraisal. Another one, negative result from the activity will hurt the activity's continuity. So sometimes when you conduct appraisal, you might be energized, you might be feeling the best performer. But now when you conduct appraisal, we might realize that there are a number of things that you have not been doing. So such negative comments are likely to affect you. The way you cope up with that may it's likely to affect your growth. So in that case, it's also likely to affect some of the activity. Or as an employee, you could have been recruited as a role. Your role is human resource management. So you are only to manage human resources. But now, when you go to appraisal, okay, during your normal work, you have also participated in marketing and other activities. So when it comes to appraisal, we tell you we will only appraise you as per human resource. That's your role. So we're not going to appraise you on whatever your contribution on marketing. So in that case, you are likely to down or your tools or the following period you're not likely to participate in marketing because you feel that's just a waste of time and nobody ever appreciates the effort you are putting in. So in that case, it's likely to hurt our business. Another one, evaluation is time consuming because we require to come up with a committee which is going to conduct this evaluation. This committee has to sit down for a number of days just looking into documents that have been submitted by the employees. So in that case, we consume a lot of time. Another one, evaluation is expensive. That for us to conduct evaluation, we probably need to come up with the paperwork, we need to come up with the other items that can be used in evaluation. So those items becomes very expensive for us. If we set up an evaluation committee, this committee will have to be served with the refreshments. So those refreshments is an extra cost that we incur. So let's look at the obstacles of measuring contribution. Obstacles of measuring contribution. That's obstacle of measuring contribution. So now when you talk of obstacle of measuring contribution, there are some hindrances, there are some side effects, there are some things that make it not possible for us to measure performance. And these are what you are referring to obstacle. Obstacle number one, historical perception of human resource within the organization. Now, in events, we conducted appraisal last year, and those who did not perform very well were their contract were terminated. In that case, we have created a history. We know this year when you conduct appraisal, employees will not be coming for appraisal for the purpose of improving themselves. They will only come to defend their positions. They will only come to defend their workplace. So in that case, it becomes difficult for us to measure appraisal, or it affects our measurement of appraisal. Another limitation is lack of top management support and commitment. At times, our managers may not support appraisal, and they may not support appraisal for this reason that if we have appraisal and we have top performers, those performers are likely to start agitating for better terms of payment or better rates, and management don't want to incur additional costs. So for that purpose, we have to they will not fully support the appraisal of our employees or evaluation and measurement. Another one, reluctant to invest in technology. So we have some softwares where appraisal can be done at our desk. As an employee, I can conduct my appraisal on my own. without necessarily having to come to or to fill in papers. But now management fail to employ such technology. And if they have not employed that technology, then it means that when you go for appraisal, it will be my word against the management word. So which may not be fair, because sometimes management could have overlooked at, some variables, whereas I'm considering those variables as critical. So in that case, I'm likely to be affected. Another barrier is inadequate analytical skills and knowledge. Now, for instance, last semester you learned about statistics. Some of you were learning that particular unit just for the purpose of passing exam. So you cannot apply that particular knowledge. So because you cannot apply that particular knowledge, then it makes it difficult for you to apply or use to conduct appraisal. Another one, inadequate communication, that at times we don't pass the information on time from top management from top bottom or bottom top. So in that case, because of that lack of communication, it makes it difficult to appraise. For example, for us to measure employee, we must have communicated the standards, the expectation at the beginning. Then once they have performed the activity, we can now conduct measurement and tell them now the current performance. Then we also have fear of evaluation. Generally, a number of us fear evaluation. For example, you have said your exam are starting on 30th. There are people who have already started panicking. There are people who are wondering, why haven't we done a lot of calculation at this accounting? Get that's giving you the fear for evaluation. But yes, but the same thing with in organization when introduce appraisal, there are people who are likely to fear those appraisal. So to avoid that, we can mitigate that so that we are able to conduct appraisal. Then another one is lack of standards. That already the organization might not be having the standard to compare against. So if we don't have those standards, in that case, we will not go in, we will not perform effective appraisal. So with that much, I will request we adjourn the topic, the discussion for today. Anybody with a question or concern, I will invite anybody with a question or concern. We can have a minute or so for it. I know you are supposed to go for the next class, and you are already about 20 minutes late. Anybody with a question or concern? Hannah, Abby, Martha, Beyonce, Fred, Jacqueline. Any concern? Any question?
No question.
Okay, thank you. Now, considering this was the last topic, and you are starting exam in the next few weeks, I would request that next week you will not be able to meet in class, so that I give you a chance now to do the preparation. Unless if you have any concern, you can still raise either through the WhatsApp group. Will be able to tackle. Two, you can download. I requested you to download the past papers and do the start the revision on time. So hopefully you are working on it or you have already downloaded. So kindly download and start revision on time. Three, uh, three, this unit, as much as it's called accounting, it doesn't have that much accounting bit part of it. It's mostly theory. It's a blend of accounting and human resource, so it does not have much of calculation. So in that perspective, feel comfortable. Just revise the way you revise other units, you'll be able to pass. Don't panic that you have not seen us preparing income statement, you have not seen us preparing a balance sheet and other costs. Those income statement and balance sheet, they belong to another branch of accounting. And for those who are in class, the first class, when I was introducing, I went through different branches of accounting and what they does. So we may not necessarily have any calculation or computation for this particular unit. And in the past papers, there are no calculations that are there. Beyonce, that's what I was elaborating. As much as it's called accounting, human resource accounting, it's a blend of accounting in the human resource. So mostly does not have calculation. So the only few areas where we did the calculation, that's the average salary. You can be asked such a few small calculation. You can be asked. We also did some model, the model where we were deciding on which salary or which particular payment is has higher value. So those are the only part where at least we can apply calculation, but doesn't have calculation. I hope okay. Yeah. So don't panic. Just do your preparation. Relax. You'll get distinction. This is a unit where most of the class members get distinction, especially once you prepare. Prepare with the notes that are available on the LMS. You'll be able to pass. Anyone else with a concern or a question? Anybody with a concern or a question? Being the last class, we can address some concerns if there are. If there's none, I take this opportunity to wish you success in your forthcoming exam and also wish you a nice weekend. We can still reachable on phone, and I'll be looking at okay. I know most of you have already seen your cut marks and the work-based marks, but there are some who either did cut but did not do work-based, or they did work-based but did not do cut. So I'll be getting the names of those and I will share on WhatsApp so that your sisters trace them, they rectify so that they don't register as supplementary. Remember, if you don't do cut and you do work based, or you don't do work based and do cut, you are likely to get you are sure to get a supplementary because it will not be complete score. So I will share the names on through WhatsApp, then our sisters track them so that they rectify. So have a wonderful weekend, and let's continue communicating on WhatsApp as you prepare for exam.